All right, welcome to today's Explainer. I'm putting on my tech researcher hat for this one to take us on a bit of a field trip into the actual reality of artificial intelligence. We hear a ton of hype, right? Lots of sci-fi speculation out there. But today, we're strictly looking at the data. We're going to open up the researcher's notebook, so to speak, to see what is literally happening under the hood of these massive systems, and more importantly, how they're already physically reshaping the world we live in.
Okay, let's dive right in by asking our core hypothesis. Just how close are these machines to our own biological complexity? Now, people love to compare artificial neural networks to biological ones, but to really understand where we are on this timeline of tech evolution, we need to benchmark the hardware.
So, here's our roadmap for this session. We'll start with biological versus artificial brains, look at the hidden physical costs, discuss designing sustainable architectures, cover AI and disaster relief, and wrap up with real-world AI innovation.
All right, Section 1, Biological versus Artificial Brains, the parameter gap. We really need to start by grounding all those science fiction myths in some hard biological reality.
It's wild to look at the climb in sophistication over just a few years. When we look at the number of parameters, which, if you think about it, are essentially the connections or the synapses of an AI model, the growth is just staggering. We went from GPT-1, which had a parameter complexity basically equivalent to an ant's brain, straight to GPT-4, which researchers estimate actually surpasses the biological complexity of a rat's brain. Now, don't tell the rats this, because unlike them, even the earlier models were already mastering human language.
But here is where it gets really humbling. Even though that climb from an ant to a rat is incredible, the human brain still has roughly 100 times more parameters than that rat-level GPT-4 model. It's a massive gap. It tells us two things, really. Our progress is astonishingly fast, for sure, but the biological machinery inside your own head, it is still vastly more complex than the most advanced supercomputers on Earth.
That brings us to Section 2, the hidden physical costs, training data and energy. Because that leap from ant to rat didn't just happen by magic.
It happened through absolute brute force, which is our next major hurdle. Training a model like GPT-4 on terabyte-scale datasets costs an estimated $100 million. I mean, just think about that number for a second. Astronomical figures like that heavily concentrate power among just a handful of massive tech giants. That potentially marginalizes smaller firms and kind of restricts the diversity of innovation we could be seeing. But honestly, the dollars are only half the story.
Beyond the economics, the environmental footprint is just astronomical. Looking at projections for 2027, the energy consumption required for training and running these large language models is absolutely soaring. In fact, NVIDIA's AI hardware units alone are projected to consume more energy than many small countries by the year 2027. We are literally trading massive amounts of physical electricity for digital intelligence.
And here's the math problem that keeps researchers awake at night. Under our current architectures, training cost increases by the square of the training data. Let me break that down simply. If you want to increase your data by 10 times to make the model smarter, the cost to train it doesn't just go up by 10, it jumps 100 times. Think of it like a student pulling an all-nighter. Studying twice as much material doesn't just take twice the coffee. It takes 4 times the toll on their body. This mathematical reality means our current brute force approach is completely unsustainable in the long run.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 3, designing sustainable architectures, the path forward. We urgently need to redesign how these models learn. It's basically an environmental call to action at this point.
As researchers, we are rapidly hitting the ceiling of all human-written text on the internet. Models like GPT-4 have been trained on datasets that far exceed the entirety of English Wikipedia. We are literally running out of words to feed the machine. And that forces us to ask this really fascinating question. What happens next? How does the AI keep getting smarter when the well of human text just runs dry?
Well, the solution involves 3 steps. First, we need more efficient model architectures that scale better. Second, we have to intelligently increase parameters. But the third step is arguably the most interesting, pivoting to multimodal data. See, human brains don't just learn by reading text, right? We consume vast amounts of visual and audio data every single day to understand our world. So to get closer to human intelligence, AI has to shift away from just text. It needs to start seeing and hearing the world just like our biological brains do.
Okay, Section 4, AI in disaster relief, stepping out of the lab. While we work to solve these massive training hurdles in the laboratory, the current models are actually already out there, physically assisting humanity in the field.
So while we worry about training costs, NASA is using artificial intelligence to analyze satellite data and provide rapid support during disasters. For example, after Hurricane Maria devastated Puerto Rico, NASA applied AI tools to satellite imagery to automatically detect the number of blue tarps placed on damaged roofs. That let them instantly characterize the severity of the damage in local communities and intelligently direct relief efforts to exactly where they were needed most. This isn't just about crunching numbers anymore, it's about turning abstract data into tangible human survival. It proves AI is a truly vital tool for our physical world.
And that brings us to Section 5, Real-World AI Innovation, Surprising Applications. Because disaster relief is really just the beginning. AI is quietly reshaping our world in ways you might never expect, way beyond your standard text-based chatbots.
Take a look at this incredible medical breakthrough from UCSF and UC Berkeley. They developed an AI-driven brain-computer interface, a BCI, that literally restored a paralyzed woman's voice. By decoding her brain signals as she attempted to speak, these AI models synthesized audible speech and even mapped it to a digital avatar all in under 1 second. Just imagine the profound impact of that. After 18 years of silence, AI bridged the gap between raw neural signals and spoken language, giving this woman her voice back and letting her express her personality to the world again. It's just amazing.
Down on the farm, AI is cackling ecological collapse. An Israeli startup actually developed a robotic beehive called BeeHome. Using computer vision, it acts as a 24/7 robotic beekeeper. It monitors the hive for parasites or hunger and autonomously intervenes. Like, it can even adjust the climate to kill off mites. The results? Colony loss dropped from an average of 40% down to just 8%. AI is quite literally saving the bees. It showcases a massive ecological and economic impact, acting as an active environmental steward.
And in the realm of computer science itself, AI is optimizing the very code we use every single day. DeepMind's AlphaDev was tasked with inventing a better sorting algorithm. Now, sorting data is a huge deal. It's the fundamental process running behind your Google searches, your social media feeds, everything. AlphaDev discovered an entirely new way to sort data that human engineers had completely missed for over a decade. And this new method? It runs up to 70% faster. AI is now looking under the hood of our digital world and completely rewriting the rules for efficiency. But despite these absolute miracles in healthcare, ecology, and computer science, we do have to stay grounded here as researchers. Current emotion AI systems, like facial recognition tech, can identify and interpret human emotions with really remarkable accuracy, but they only simulate empathy using algorithms. A machine does not feel. The fundamental purpose of human emotion is deeply linked to biological survival, a mechanism that AI inherently lacks. It can recognize a frown perfectly, but it absolutely doesn't know what it feels like to be sad.
So, I'm going to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought for our explainer today. We've seen that the artificial intelligence we're building doesn't have feelings, it doesn't have consciousness, and it certainly doesn't have a soul, but from consuming the electricity of entire nations, to saving bee colonies, to finding disaster victims from space, its footprint on our physical world is undeniably real. As researchers and as citizens, our job now is to guide that massive footprint so it continues to serve human survival. Thank you so much for joining me, and as always, keep questioning the data.